just a quick recap guys. This is part 2 of possible transformations that our created characters could very well have. I recommend that you watch part 1 first, as we covered ground rules and Saiyans. And to start off this video, let's talk about the 3 transformations that every single race should get: Unlock Potential, Villainous Mode, and Margin Seal. As far as Unlock Potential goes, I think it works perfectly in Xenoverse 1, so I wouldn't change anything about it. Much like Villainous Mode Super Saiyan 1 and 2, I think the normal Villainous Mode that anyone can use should work pretty much the same as the Super Saiyan exclusive Villainous Modes. And as far as the Margin Seal goes, I think it's something that should activate automatically when you hit a certain amount of health, much like in the Burcol series. Maybe when you're at a quarter of your total health, and then maybe for it to give you a certain amount of time where you would have super armor. So, to start off the other races, let's start with humans. I really had a hard time coming up with new transformations that humans could get. Taking influence from the anime, what transformations could they be given? Well, you've got Master Roshi who can use a max power form, and I definitely think that could be a contender. But what transformation could they then give to female humans? Well, that is a very tricky one, because as far as I'm aware, the only transformation a female human gets in the Dragon Ball anime is a giant form. And thinking about it, I think this is something that could work. Give a max power form to male humans, which would increase their strength and ki attacks, and give the female humans a giant form, which would increase their health and defense. And on top of that, I think the third transformation humans should get should be Unleash Potential. Now, I've made a conscious decision not to give every single race Unleash Potential, because I think that would just severely reduce the playability and the attraction of playing as a human. Hence why I've been saying Unlock Potential. Honestly, the reason this video has been taking so long to come out is because I've been having a really hard time coming up with transformations humans could get. And next, the Freezer race. In a previous video, I mentioned that I don't think the Freezer race would get a Xenomorph transformation. Just taking time to think about it more and to read the comments you guys have posted, as well as something that I discovered about the Namekian race in Xenoverse 1, which we'll talk about after the Freezer race. I have a strong feeling that the Freezer race will get at least 3 transformations: a Xenomorph transformation, a final form transformation, and an ultimate golden evolution form. And this is how I think it could work. When you create your Freezer race character, the options you pick will decide on what transformations you are given. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to jump into Paint and just make some sort of very crude graph that would show you which transformation you would be given based on the options you pick. And to keep this somewhat simple, I think it should just be based off which head option you pick and which mouth option you pick. So for example, if you picked head option 5 and then mouth option 2, you would be given the Xenomorph option number 5, and based off which Xenomorph transformation you was given, you would also have the same number for your final form. So if I was given the Xenomorph option number 5, I would also be given the 5th option for the final transformation. And then for the golden evolution, it would just be the final form but just painted gold. I've not included the 100% power form because I honestly think that the golden form just makes that completely redundant. And I've also not included the second form because it's just not that iconic. And one final point to finish off the Freezer race transformations is that when they transform, their clothing and armor and equipment should just vanish, much like what happened with Freezer. Mostly because it will just encourage a system where stats on clothes isn't even a thing anymore, which honestly it just shouldn't be. And next we have Namekians. This should be fairly obvious. I mean, there's just 2 transformations that would make sense for them. Firstly, a giant form, and secondly, a red-eyed super powered up version of their base form, much like what we saw in the Dragon Ball Online trailer. Now, what I said earlier about what I found out about the Namekian race, it's something that opens up so many doors for more customization options and more transformations in general. What you're seeing now is footage of me just making a Namekian character, just using random features. I'm not putting a second thought into what I'm picking. The idea is that it's just a random character with random features. Now, fast forward a bit, and you can see that when a Namekian uses his throw, his arms stretch. And what's so critically important about this is that the clothing option and colour options that you pick also stretch. Now, obviously, I don't know anything about game development, but I do know that everything you see in any game has to be programmed in some way, either manually or using some sort of automated system. I can't really see that when they were developing Xenoverse that they programmed programmed in every single frame for every piece of clothing and colour variant for the Namekian throw. So I'm thinking that they have some sort of automated system that when certain properties are set, it will program certain things. So in this case, the Namekian throw, because what you're seeing here is just in 30 frames, but on the PC version it can run in 60 frames per second. So doing the maths, that's 60 frames for every piece of Namekian clothing, and then including the colours for them. That's at least a few thousand different models that must be programmed in some way. So it makes sense to me to think now that it's an automated system. So with that being said, I think that opens up so many unique transformations for not only Namekians but for literally every other race, including giant transformations. If there's anybody out there who knows something about game development and how stuff like this works, please let me know. Tweet to me about it, leave a comment, because I'm interested in how an automated system like this could operate and be applied. And next we have a race that I think will be included for Xenoverse 2, the Bio Android. Now I think the Bio Androids will get two transformations, these being a super perfect form and a god powered up form. I just can't see them adding some sort of mechanic that would allow you to absorb someone in battle and to take on their characteristics. I mean, it's something that could happen, but I'm not confident in saying that you should expect it. So the way I think this could work would be that when you're creating your Bio Android race, you are creating their perfect form or their final form. The super perfect transformation would just give you the Super Saiyan 2 lightning, the Super Saiyan aura and the yellow hue, much like what we see from Cell when he comes back to Earth. And I think this should have the same strength as a Super Saiyan 2, and for their god form, I think they should take influence from Genome from Dragon Ball Heroes. But if they wanted to give us a second form, they could do something similar to what I've mentioned with the Frieza race. So for example, if you picked head option 6 with mouth option 1, you would be given, I don't know, like final form or second form option number 6. It's just an example, you get what I'm trying to say. And next we have the Majin race. First things first, I don't think they should get a super form, but instead just give us an option to make a slim tall Majin. As far as transformations go, again, this is another tricky race to give a transformation to because they absorb to transform. So with that being said, I think an obvious transformation that they should be given would be a pure form. And apart from that, there's not really another transformation that they could be given unless you give them a giant form, which could work. Or maybe do what they did in Xenoverse 1 and give you an extra costume slot which would automatically make you a small Majin, which could just be a copy and paste of your first preset. And next we have the Tuffles. This is something that I think could work so well for Xenoverse 2. I would give them 4 transformations. We have what is known as the strongest forms 1 and 2, which represent Super Saiyan 2 and 3. We then have the golden great ape form, and finally I will give them a form that represents Hachiak, and I would make this their god form. For the strongest forms 1 and 2, all they would have to do would just change your hair so it represents that of a Super Saiyan 1 and 2, change your eyes so they are a solid blue, and give you 2 red lines across your chest and forehead. And as far as the great ape goes, they could either just make all of your clothes rip off or scale everything up using the automated system that I mentioned earlier. And finally, a Hachiak / god form. There's not really much to say here apart from that I think it should work similar to the system I mentioned earlier, where if you pick head option 1 and body option 6, you'll get a Hachiak form number 10. I've already mentioned this system in the video, so just rewind it if you want to revisit that idea. And finally we have the alien race. First things first, I know Mira isn't an alien, but who else am I supposed to use from Xenoverse to represent someone who looks like an alien? Monray. In terms of exclusive transformations, I think the alien race should just be given a super form. This could represent what Mira has in Dragon Ball Heroes, which looks like a demonic Super Saiyan, which honestly I think that would work really well. But considering I think the alien race will be a mix of every other race and more, I think that they should be given one transformation from most of the other races. So I would give them both of the villainous Super Saiyan modes, an ultimate golden evolution, a super perfect form, and a transformation that resembles the Namekian red-eyed super powered up form. And that's all I have to say for this video. And what do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree with what I've said? Let us know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.